on our way to Alabama, before we take off to our destination, Bill Holter was kind enough to invite us over to his ranch. And for the people out there who don't know who Bill Holter is, Bill, give us a little rundown of your background.
Yeah, I was a broker for 23 years, a branch manager for 12. Never had any lawsuits or settlements, arbitrations. That's my proudest accomplishment. It's an impossibility in today's world. Retired in late 2006, went to Costa Rica with my family, lived there for 5 years, came back in 2011. I started writing for GATA after I retired in 2007, and I started to get a following, and then I started writing for Miles Franklin in 2012. Did that until 2015, and then I joined a partnership with Jim Sinclair until 2 years ago. Jim just passed away a little over a year ago, and I work as a precious metals broker. I clear through Miles Franklin.
I would say Bill's one of the godfathers in the game, and one of the people that woke me up many, many years ago, probably going back to around 2013, one of the first people I was following of that group of people, and really brought precious metals to my attention and really waking up to maybe, to be getting out of the system. And so it's a real privilege to be here today and to have known you for over a year now. Appreciate it. One of the first questions I'll start out with, and we all have questions here. Why are we now seeing this breakout in gold prices?
Easy question. Go back to look at the chart. A year ago, if you recall, is when the U.S. Treasury, I think it even came right from the Biden administration, they were talking about confiscating over $300 billion of Russian treasuries. And immediately the next day, gold was up $25-30, and that was $1,700. Now we're $2,700. And so what's happened over the last year is that central banks and sovereign treasuries are getting rid of, they're de-dollarizing. They're getting rid of dollars. They're getting out of treasuries, and they're using those funds to buy gold. And the reason they're doing that is they understand mathematically the U.S. is toast. I mean, there's no way to pay the debt off, and soon there's going to be no way to even pay the interest on the debt. So they know that they're going to have a big black hole in their balance sheet. The average central bank holds about 60% of their reserves in treasuries. So they know that's going to at least drop 40-50%, if not go poof. So what they're doing is they're buying gold as a hedge to offset what they know they're going to lose in dollars.
So is this pretty much the end of the U.S. dollar? And how soon would it be till we start seeing real problems with the U.S. dollar?
It's hard to say whether it's right now or 3 months from now or 6 months from now. You do know that there's a BRICS meeting next week, and that meeting, I don't think they're going to bring their currency unit. It's being called the unit. I don't believe they're going to bring that live next week. If they were to bring that live next week, immediately the next day, all bets are off if you hold dollars, because what's going to happen, what will ultimately happen is that the BRICS countries, first off, the reason that there's a BRICS formation is because the world collectively wants free and fair trade settlement, something real for something real. And the way it is right now, we're importing $1 trillion worth of stuff every year, and we're exporting $1 trillion. Those dollars are basically worthless. So the world understands that they're giving up real goods and they're getting something back that is a nothing.
Monopoly money.
Exactly. It's monkey money. So the BRICS has formed because they want free and fair trade settlement. Now, going forward, if they don't announce now, they're going to announce later, but they will come out with a communique, and it may be a strong communique, and you may see serious weakness in the dollar right after that concludes. Hard to say, but the bottom line is we don't make anything in the U.S. anymore, and we import everything. If our trading partners say we'll still trade with you, but we're not taking dollars. We'll take gold, or we'll take the unit, or we'll take wheat, or whatever. They want trade something real for something real. So what I'm getting at is, once we get to this point and we cannot no longer import goods for dollars, that's when you're going to see a massive hyperinflation. I mean, you could see an immediate move of 100%. I mean, what was $100 today could be $100 tomorrow, based on foreign nations saying trade's off. We're not doing any more trade until we get paid something real.
And this would be catastrophic for 99%
Oh,
of the population.
It'll be catastrophic for everyone. It doesn't matter whether you're prepared or not. What'll happen is that will also, and we've talked about this before, it will seize up credit.
Mm-hmm.
And once credit stops, the real economy stops.
Yeah.
And if you think your lifestyle of, you go to the grocery store once a week to stock up, but 3 times a week you go to get, what you want for dinner that night, that's not going to happen. Grocery stores are going to be empty. Walmart's going to be empty. Think of what happens just before a hurricane hits.
Mm-hmm.
The stores are wiped out. There's not little elves in the back room that bake bread.
Right. Aaron, you got a question?
Yes, Bill. So I was going to ask about the BRICS meeting coming up, but you covered that, so I'm going to go ahead and move to the next one.
So how'd you like to drive?
Yeah, you handled that car pretty well.
Yeah, we were late. We got here pretty quick.
Yeah.
Anyways, so so you're a metals broker for Miles Franklin. What's the activity that you've seen the last month or so? I've been hearing that there's less smaller orders. The orders volume is down, but the ones y'all are getting are bigger orders. So can you tell me about, I don't know, the last month or so of what you're seeing with purchases?
Yeah, the first 4 or 5 months of the year was good. Like the last 2 years have been active, and then we had a definite slowdown. And you saw premiums come down. That's a function of less demand, North American demand. So the month of June, July, and August were definitely slower, and we started to see a pickup the very beginning of September. And I got to tell you, the last 4 weeks have been just dynamite. My phone's been ringing. I'm not, like you said, I'm not getting a lot of small orders. I'm getting big orders.
Bill, what size orders are we talking about? What do you consider a big order?
500,000, $1 million. You get a few of those. I mean, just in the last 4 weeks, I've probably done between $35 and $40 million of sales, which is, that's a pretty good month.
Wow. Aaron?
So why do you think the small orders have stopped? I've heard that it's the little guys wiped out. They're having to make rent and all that. Are you seeing any selling, or is it mainly just it's stopped or slowed down except for the bigger?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's definitely the average person's being pinched. And I got to say, this year I've seen more sales than in any year. And we're only, 3/4 of the way through the year. And that's a function of people needing to raise cash to live on.
And just to elaborate, Bill, I know people that run pawn shops, that have coin shops,
Yep.
and they have never seen so much selling going on. Right. The pawn shops, they're taking in the gold coins, the silver coins, the Rolex watches, the guitars, everything. But precious metals, yeah, a lot of silver. And some of the coin shops that I have personal friends with, seeing a lot of the people coming in to sell silver and gold to make their mortgage payments, right, make the rent payment, make the car payment. So I have to testify to seeing the same thing.
And that's a function of the real economy.
Right.
I mean, the government tells you that the economy's great, everything's fine, but yet we had a 50 basis point rate cut, which is like a panic emergency rate cut with stocks at all-time highs. The fact is, the economy is definitely rough. The average person is being beaten up on a daily basis. Inflation is growing much, much faster than incomes.
Bill, and I'll get to you really quick, Enrique, but Bill, so we had the jumbo cut, 50 basis points. Mortgage rates are now going up.
Right.
What's going on?
Well, what you saw was a 50 basis point cut, and they can control short-term rates. They cannot control the longer-term market rates. And mortgage rates are based on the 10-year Treasury, the 10, 20, 30-year Treasury. It's based on the longer rates. And I think one of two things is happening. When they cut rates, that is leading people to believe, or leading investors to believe, there's going to be more inflation going forward. So if you're holding a 10-year bond at 3% or 3.5%, and you believe there's inflation is going to pick up from here, you're locking in a loss. You're locking in a negative return. So you've seen selling in treasuries. You're also seeing selling in treasuries, not just from investors, but you're seeing it from sovereign wealth funds. You're seeing it from sovereign treasuries trying to de-dollarize, and that is pushing rates up. Rates were cut 50 basis points, and as of right now, mortgage rates are 42 basis points higher.
So we have markets at all-time highs. We're seeing gold at all-time highs. They're saying GDP is growing, wages are going up, all this nonsense. Should they have even cut rates, telling us how great everything is? I mean, obviously there's something nefarious going on behind the scenes that they would be cutting rates, but why, if we're living this utopia that everything's great, would they be cutting rates?
That's one of two things. It's either a political, they did it because we've got an election and trying to help the current administration, or something's on fire under the surface that we can't see, we don't know about.
Right.
There is talk that the repo market is beginning to tighten again, so it very well could be a banking problem.
Enrique.
Yes, so right now I know I have a question for you as well. I know that the average person who views JB's channel usually is probably not going to have someone that's going to have hundreds of thousands of dollars. Most of the people, they probably want to invest maybe a couple thousand. And so my question to you is, you as being a seasoned investor, what do you recommend for the average investor to start with, either gold or silver, or the ratio of how much money they should be putting in if they have $10,000 to start? Let's say the average person has, $5,000 to $10,000.
Right.
Where would be a good ratio of silver and gold, or where should they look for? Is there any particular strategy that you recommend for someone, whether or not they go buy at a certain pawn shop, or if they go online, or if they look for their friends and family, or anybody that they know that they can probably trust? What do you recommend?
If you're a first-time buyer, and if you're talking, small money, say 20, 25,000 or less, I would go all silver. Silver is going to outperform gold simply because of the ratio at 85 to 1. It takes 85 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. That's man's ratio, but it comes out of the system, or comes out of the ground 10 to 1. That's God's ratio. So one of them's right and one of them's wrong. And even if the ratio just comes down to 40, silver is going to outperform gold 2 to 1.
Okay.
So you're going to get more bang for your buck out of silver.
Yeah.
The other thing is, though, when the system comes down, you're going to need silver to barter. ATMs aren't going to work. Credit cards aren't going to work. There won't be grocery stores filled with stuff. You're going to need to barter with farmers. You're going to need to barter with people who have stuff that you want. And the best form of silver to own for an American is junk silver. That's pre-1965 dimes and quarters. They're 90% silver. $1.38, so call it 14 dimes, equals 1 ounce, which gives you 14 transactions versus one with a silver eagle or a bar or what have you. So junk silver, and it's about the cheapest form right now too, which is, it should not be. There should be a much higher premium on it. So what I'm telling you is, you can buy junk basically for the same price you can buy bars.
So I'm going to add.
Bars there's no utility to bars. You're not going to be able to barter bars because who's going to take them?
Right.
Who can prove that they're real?
So I'm going to add to that question. A lot of people like 5 or 10,000. Should they be investing in the stock market right now? Is the stock market overvalued? Are precious metals undervalued? We're hearing every day. I turn on the television, I'm watching Fox Business, CNBC. Oh man, you got to be jumping in these markets. You need to be getting in. They are selling us so hard to get into these markets. Me personally, I don't think I've ever seen the market so overheated and so overvalued as what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, the markets obviously are overvalued. What I would caution is if you are in stocks, do yourself a favor and at least get the stock certificates sent out to you. If you leave them with your broker and your broker fails, you're going to lose your stocks. Read The Great Taking by David Rogers Webb. I've posted it 4 or 5 times on my site. It's about a 100-page report. It is not speculation. These laws are on the books. When your bank goes down or your broker goes down or your insurance company goes down, that's not your money. You're not the owner of the money. For instance, when you go into a bank and you quote deposit money, it's not a deposit. You are a lender. And unfortunately, you're the most junior lender. So until everything gets paid off, you're not going to get your money. That's what is meant by a bail-in. And the FDIC has already told us there won't be bailouts, there will be bail-ins.
Bill, what about the dangers to gold and silver ETFs?
Do they actually hold gold? Do they actually hold silver?
Maybe
I don't think so.
1 ounce for every 500.
I have no idea what the number is,
Right.
but, well, when the markets close, what good is that?
Right.
You have no access to it, and that'll get gobbled up in The Great Taking.
Aaron,
So the next question that I have, we keep seeing all-time record highs in gold. Silver is just barely over its, I guess, a little bit over half of its all-time record high. When do you think silver is going to catch up with gold?
Uh,
Or what's keeping?
what's keeping it down?
Yeah, why isn't silver?
The reason silver's being held down, I mean, or the way it's being held down, is through paper contracts. They're selling paper contracts to cap the price, and that's going to take a lot of institutions out on a stretcher. They're going to go bankrupt because they're short. As I understand it, there's about 300 paper ounces. There's about 300 paper ounces for every 1 real ounce that exists. So when people find out, or when people demand delivery for their metal, they're going to find out their metal doesn't exist. And once that happens, once you have a failure to deliver, it'll bleed over to gold. And once it bleeds over to gold, and I'm talking about a 72-hour event here, where gold just explodes. Could be going $200, $500, $1,000 a day. Confidence breaks, and then derivatives break. And when derivatives break, it's done. It's party over.
Enrique.
Yes. So another question that I have for you as well, and I know that you're a strong believer in having your actual metals in hand, whether or not you can store them in a vault. Now, right now, there's a lot of people also that watch the channel that I'm aware of that are also investors in cryptocurrency, and I would like to know your take on it, or whether or not you think anybody should be speculating on that, or if that's something that you think is just simply garbage and people should be transferring their money little by little over to actual assets that you can hold.
Yeah, you used the right word, speculating. It's a speculation. In my opinion, it's digital air, and you're going to find the vast majority of these things go to zero.
And many of them already have.
Right.
Plus the amount of fraud and theft that's taking place.
Yeah, and think about, what is it, Doggy Coin or
Yeah,
Dogecoin
yeah.
or whatever. I mean, the creator of that has come out publicly and said it was a joke.
Yeah, yeah.
And now it's got what, a $50 billion or whatever. I mean, it's a huge market cap.
Yeah.
But it was a joke.
Right. Aaron.
So I know central banks, countries have been stacking gold heavily. That's all we're pretty much hearing about. But recently, Russia's, I believe, central bank, they announced that they're going to start stacking silver. So what do you think's going on with that? Why do you think they're moving over to silver? Just not gold.
Diversifying into silver.
Yeah, they said silver and other commodities, but they started with silver. And make no mistake, Vladimir Putin is not a dumb person. He's a very smart man. And he knows and has known for years. Let's go back to 2004. He was holding a 400-ounce bar with a big grin on his face. I mean, they know that gold is the Achilles heel to our monetary system. And how do you light up gold? Light up silver. So,
Yeah.
and they do understand that silver now for 3 or 4 years has been in a severe deficit.
Right.
So he's basically, just pushing it, not, just giving it a teeny tiny push to knock it over. And once silver gets through this 32.50 level, you should see it run to $50. Goes through $50, there's no telling where it goes to from there.
So I don't get political, but I'm going to ask you a question. It's not really political, but are we past the point of no return right now because of the debt?
Yeah.
Left, right, in the middle, doesn't matter who you are, what you believe in. No matter who wins, right, left, in the middle, whatever. Does it even matter at this point? Because neither candidate is talking about the debt. I think that both of them are talking about lowering interest rates, getting more cheap money out there, spending more money, more wars. So what should we expect to come no matter who wins? Is it too late now? Or is this the time to be hunkering down for what's about to hit?
Yeah, mathematically, it's over. I mean, if you look at the interest on the debt each year, we're now at just over $1 trillion interest only.
Yeah.
By this time next year, we'll be at $1.5 trillion. Within 2 years, we'll probably be pushing $2 trillion in just interest alone. It doesn't matter who wins the election. No one can say, I mean, other than the second coming of Jesus Christ, there's no way this can be fixed because the math is the math. The cake has been in the oven for 50 years. It's on fire. And
so another question to add to that. The average American has spent all their money going to football games, going out to dinner, going to Las Vegas, buying a bunch of garbage, buying dumb stuff for years and years and years. They took all the stimmy money. They went out, they bought cars, they bought vacations, they bought jewelry, they were buying the Rolex watches, anything they could get their hands on. Cars that they were paying $20,000 over MSRP. Now the credit cards are 23-30%. People have massive amounts of debt. Is it too late for most Americans now to save themselves? I mean, when people have so much debt, how do they even begin to prepare for what is coming? And how bad is it that we're about to see? Is it going to be the Mad Max scenario, Mad Max Thunderdome that we hear you talk about a lot?
well, ultimately, yeah. This very well could turn into Mad Max. How many police are going to actually be working when this thing goes down? They're going to be with their families, protecting their own families.
The smart ones will be.
Yeah. I mean, I think the majority.
Right.
I mean, if you haven't put away the food, the water,
You got to do it. You got to start right away.
I mean, but I'm $10,000 in debt. They're going to repo my car. We're looking at 30,000 repos a day in America. I mean, how are people able now at this point to even begin to prepare for what's coming? They're broke.
Right, they are broke. I would just say if there's any way you could get your hand on $2,000 or $3,000 to buy food, that'll get you 6 months to a year's worth of food. And I'm not talking about steaks. I'm talking about rice, beans.
Yeah.
Basically heavy foods. Enough to fill your belly, enough to get you through.
You got to get your priorities straight, though, right? I mean, people are still spending money they don't have on these credit cards on dumb stuff.
Right.
And Enrique, I know you would say, go get some side hustles
Yes.
and start stacking some capital and go buy the stuff you need.
Yeah, that's true. If you start small, somewhere along the lines of finding your abilities and being able to use those abilities to generate some extra income every single month, you can actually use that to start stashing away everything that you need to be able to prep. Also, like we said before, if you don't have the money to be able to start training, to be able to have better skills to protect yourself, that's another area that you could be putting your money into. So even if you have your regular 9 to 5, you still might have an ability where you might be able to generate some side income and to be able to, like I said, just stock up on your gold, stock up on your silver, especially on your junk silver, just as we had mentioned today, and also bring up your skills, level up your skills, and start saving, food and water and any other things that you might need in case something does happen.
Because, I mean, time is running out. And there's not going to be something coming up on the TV like a storm's coming, like, hey, you better get ready. You're seeing the warnings right now. Bill Holter is sitting down. He's been sitting down for years warning all of you. And people just think, well, if it hasn't happened already, Bill, it's never going to happen.
Here
we are.
I mean,
and
it's
a lot's happening.
Yeah, it's right in front of your face.
Right.
If you can't see it, well, then you can't be helped.
It's starting to drizzle right now.
Right.
And if you don't see it by now, you're in big trouble. Aaron.
Yeah, I think most Americans are under the thought process of it's never happened here, and so it can't happen here. It'll never happen here.
This is America,
right? And I think they're going to be sadly mistaken. So the next question I had, since we were kind of talking about the elections, I know I've asked you this a couple times on my interviews with you, but do you think we're going to make it to, what is it, November 6th, 5th? 5th? Yeah, with the elections.
I don't know.
All right.
Let me just say that I started last November saying that I thought there was probably only a 50-50 chance, and that was when it was Trump versus Biden. I thought there was only a 50-50 chance that we would even have an election. And as time has gone by, I think that probability has dropped. Now, with what's happened, like last night with the Brett Baer Kamala interview, the spread now is on the poly markets is 21, 22 points.
Yeah.
So it looks pretty much like a shoe-in that Trump's going to win.
Right.
And that the spread is so big that the polling numbers are always, and the polling numbers are now swinging toward Trump. So they understand this is too big to rig. They can't cheat enough to win.
Yeah.
And that's what scares me, is that they'll do something really stupid to cancel the election. I mean, it could be absolutely anything or everything. These people have no conscience whatsoever. I mean, you could wake up one morning and find out that a city got nuked, and they blame it on Iran, or they blame it on Russia, or they blame it on someone. And oh, by the way, we can't have an election.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to happen? Well, I just think the probability, after last night's episode, the probability probably dropped even more that we're going to have an election. And we're only less than 2 weeks out.
So, Bill, if we do, I think a lot of people are putting, all their faith that if Mr. T gets elected, the end of their worries are over, the utopia is back. I don't think it's going to be that easy. There's too much debt. There's too much damage now for one man to come in and fix it all. Now, maybe he can come in and get us on the right course, but I think the worst is yet to come, in my opinion.
Well, I think you're right, that the math is unworkable at this point. There's no way to save this system. I've said all along that, I will vote for Trump personally because this thing's going to go down, and I want it to go down under the rule of law as opposed to under the rule of their law. Yeah. If Trump gets in, this country will, for 4 years, follow the Constitution, or that will at least be the lane that they're looking to steer things in. If Kamala got in, who knows? Who
knows? Enrique, any next question?
Yeah. So another thing is I've pondered about this situation, about things getting worse, or whether or not, like you mentioned earlier, we could wake up one morning and find out that part of America has been nuked, and maybe they could
cyber attack.
Anything could happen.
Yeah.
It could be anything. We had a cell phone service go down. We've had a lot of places gotten hacked lately. So you just never know. There could be a big cyber threat, or it could be a physical threat. And so going into this, I was going to ask you as well, obviously in the past, the United States has gone through world wars. And so if we do go into another world war, how do you think that will impact America's ability to start being able to change its ways and to be able to start paying out some of this debt? Or do you think it's nearly impossible even then? And how do you think that will affect the gold and silver prices?
That's a good question. And Bill, could we even afford financially a world war?
Go. It's a really good question, and I hate to even answer it. But you're right. We can't afford a war. Our military is no longer ready for a war. We've got generals, admirals that are running around in high heel pumps and skirts.
Yeah.
That's not going to scare anyone.
Strategic petroleum reserves. Emptied
strategic
out.
petroleum reserves are empty. We know for a fact that Russia has hypersonic missiles. We do not have hypersonic
Right.
missiles. We've only had one or two successful tests now.
Yeah.
And as my ex-partner Jim Sinclair used to say, if you can't catch it, you can't kill it.
Yeah, and they're fast. They're unbelievable. The
yeah.
technology.
Exactly.
Yeah. The world, I don't think Americans understand the technology that China and Russia now possess.
Right.
Also, the amount of munitions, drones, F-16s, the amount of equipment we've sent over to Ukraine,
And it's getting all
Israel.
blown up.
Yeah, it's all. So we have. I don't know. I don't think we were going to do very well if it goes that far. And plus, wouldn't China would be involved?
Right.
Wouldn't they just cut us off? Like, hey, your pharmaceuticals aren't coming over now.
Exactly.
Everything on your store shelves ain't coming over anymore.
And to your question, life as we have known it will be over completely.
Yeah, and then they take Taiwan, then they have the chips, all
Right.
that. It's just, I think, America's like, Bill, 9,000 sanctions across the world. That's what America now has across the globe, 9,000 sanctions. And we just, I think, threatened China, I don't know, a few months ago that if they invade Taiwan, there's going to be severe sanctions. How in the world would, what it's almost laughable.
How do you sanction your biggest creditor?
Right. If they cut us off, we're in big trouble.
Right.
Aaron, anything you want to add?
I had another question. I mean, it's kind of changing gears, but I know JB talks about it on his channel. I talk about it, but if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Do you recommend storing metals? At what point would you store metals? Where would you store them if you had to? Or like,
what's the pros and
that's a good
cons?
question.
Pros and cons.
I recommend people hold all their gold. I mean, even if you had 5,000 ounces of gold, you would be able to. You can store that. You can hide it. You can bury it. But if you've got, hey, Platz. Good Platz. But let's say you've got 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 ounces of silver. How do you store that? You can't. You keep 5, 10,000 ounces on hand, and you store the rest. I personally store some, or a fair amount in North Dakota. North Dakota is the only state in the country that's not part of the Federal Reserve System. So theoretically, you could not have, doesn't mean they wouldn't try, but you really can't legally have a federal agent walk in and say, tell us who your customers are and what they own.
We do have people that watch the show that do store in other countries. Do you advise against that or not?
I stored in Austria. I stored in Switzerland from 2006 to about 2015. And basically, they're kicking Americans out. They don't want Americans simply because of the regulations that they're being put. Regulations are being put on with the threat of being cut off from the SWIFT system, that everything has to be reported. And it's so much work. These banks basically say, we don't want to do business with an American. So it's difficult to store in Switzerland. And I'm not even sure if it was easier to store that I'd want to do that, because really they've kind of flipped. I mean, their bank secrecy laws, they're willing to tell anybody anything about who's got what.
Right.
I know some people store in Singapore. Jim had recommended that up until about 2019, 2020, and kind of backed off of that. The only reason you would store overseas is if, let's say, you wanted to have an operation and you wanted to go to a foreign country to have an operation or to do something. You would have money outside of borders if there's capital controls.
Okay. Enrique, anything?
Well, the only other thing that I can see here is I know that a lot of dealers, metals dealers, not only do they advertise that they sell gold and silver, but a lot of them now they say that they sell palladium and also platinum. What's your recommendation on that? Do you recommend people have some of that as well?
I don't recommend it at all. Platinum and palladium are they're industrial metals.
Okay.
And once industry stops, they're not money.
Okay.
They're industrial metals. Whereas gold and silver is industrial and money. Gold is pure money.
So I'm gonna wrap it up there. We're gonna grab some dinner. I want to thank Bill for his time. And Bill, is there any information you want to give? Contacts, websites, anything like that? People want to get a hold of you? Anything you want to
Yeah, sure.
talk about?
Yeah, my website is just simply billholter.com. There is a contact button there. Because we're so close to something happening, there is an icon up on the top of the website. It's called Grizzly's Corner. It's super prep information. There's probably a dozen articles there, and I mean, I know when they were sent in to me, I've learned stuff on every single one of the articles. So I would definitely go to that. If you want to contact me, there is a contact button, or if you want to contact me directly through my business email, it's bholter@proton.me.
Aaron, real quick.
One more thing I thought of, Bill, and I know we've talked about this pretty extensively. If these people think that they want to get these medals, they need to get them now, because I think there's going to be a point where they're not available, and I think you're of the same opinion.
Yeah, that's you might even order metal today. Hey, Fooey, oh, she's on your tab too. It's new. I mean, you could order and pay for metal today, and you may not. If something happens and you know, transit commerce breaks down, it may be too late already. It's hard to say.
Yeah, well, you don't know what tomorrow brings. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Right.
Just like that storm when those people got hit. I mean, you just never know if some kind of disaster, natural, man-made, could hit tomorrow, or how severe it's going to be. So don't take chances.
Right. So if you want the medal, get it. It doesn't matter what price point. It's all undervalued.
Buy it, put it away.
And
Don't think about
get
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you mentioned natural or man-made. I mean, in what world does a storm go from 35 miles an hour to over 200 miles an hour in 24 hours?
Yeah.
I mean, that was juiced with, steroids,
So
man-made steroids.
there you have it. Who knows what's going on? We're seeing things we've never seen before. Welcome to 2024. I can't even imagine what 2025 is going to bring. We're seeing a lot of things happening. Things are accelerating at a rate we have never seen in our lifetime. I think this is the worst economy we have ever seen in a lifetime, and it's going to get much, much more serious. So make sure that you're listening to people like Mr. Bill Holter. Take a few minutes out of your day, do some due diligence, do your own homework, and pay attention to what is going on. You owe it to yourself and your family, because if you're not prepared, you're going to be victimized by this economy, and it's going to get nasty. So God bless. Thanks for tuning in. Please like, share, subscribe. Mr. Bill Holter, thanks for joining. And Aaron, Enrique, we're going to grab some dinner. Take care.